Hello, and welcome to So Mom, the podcast where my mother and I talk about whatever we want. Sometimes storytelling, sometimes educators, sometimes just what we did last week, and a combination of all of the above. Hi, Mom.
Adele, as if I don't know. What did you do this week?
Well,
Yes.
I went away by myself to work. I went to Carmel, and I stayed at a little inn, and I woke up and I wrote all day, every day for 4 days.
Did you really?
I did. It was great. You know what was the best part about being by myself? Aside from my wonderful sleeps because my snoring dog didn't wake me up every hour.
Which I have to hear about a lot.
I know, it's a big obstacle in my life.
Yeah, I know.
I loved getting to be messy.
That surprises me because you're not messy.
I'm not messy because I live with 3 tidy people. But on my own, left to my own devices, I am Pigpen.
I couldn't be more shocked.
No, there was old pizzas by the time I left that inn.
Yeah. I hope you left a big tip.
I did.
When I go away, and I was just away for about 5 days, I miss some of my routine. Like, I get a latte in bed every morning, and I look forward to that. And then I do things in a much slower pace in the morning.
Wait, what do you mean you are delivered a latte in bed by your husband?
Yes.
I get a latte in bed. Sound like DoorDash came to your bed.
Well, it's kind of DoorDash. But then I just have a routine. And when I'm away, I have no routine. So I can do weird things like eat out of a vending machine, which I'd never do.
I also don't have any sense of bedtime. I tried to put myself to bed, but then I was like, you know what I'd also like to do is watch The Souvenir with Tilda Swinton.
Oh.
You know, the movie that I could get nobody else to watch with me at 1:30 a.m.
Yeah.
That's when I'm going to watch it.
Oh, I don't even turn my television on.
You know what I did? I went to the ocean every day. There, I was right near the ocean, and I love the ocean.
I think that's brave of you.
I didn't swim in it.
I didn't say you did. I think it's brave just to walk by yourself
To go near the
on a
ocean.
strange beach.
You have such a low bar for what's brave.
I know.
We are thrilled to welcome Abdi Nazemian to the pod today. Abdi is the Stonewall and Lambda winning author of Only This Beautiful Moment and the modern YA classic Like a Love Story, both named one of Time 100's best YA books of all time. He is also a screenwriter, Ordinary Joe, The Village, Almost Family. He is an executive producer on, among other films, Call Me By Your Name. His latest novel, Exquisite Things, is out in September. He is also the father of twins. Abdi, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you actually here in our studio. And I understand you're a long-time Angelino. You've been here a while.
I have been here since June 1st of 1998.
No, that's a long time.
Yes.
And you grew up by coastal?
I was born in Iran in 1976. I was 2 years old when we left, right toward the beginning of the revolution. My family went to Paris for 5 years, then to Toronto for 3 years, where we became Canadian citizens. Then when I was 10, we moved to the suburbs of New York. And then my parents eventually went to the city when I was already in college there. But yeah, so I was never really at any one school for more than 4 years growing up. That was the max. So being in LA since 1998 is wild to me, to be in one place.
I also read that you were a Choate grad and
I was indeed.
Columbia, Choate, and UCLA for your master's. I was like, tell me more about all of this.
I'm very educated, and my retirement dream is to get a PhD in history at Oxford or Cambridge or Trinity College in Dublin. I have very specific dreams.
That is that's a
is
highly visual dream.
It's a very
Wonderful
visual dream. Isn't it a great dream?
Yes, it is.
Just in the car this morning, I was dropping the kids off at school, and we were calling my husband, who's in London right now for work. And we were joking because we keep telling our kids to apply to college in London because we're like, let's just migrate our lives over there. And then I said I was going to be like Rodney Dangerfield and back to school and go to college with them.
You have to
Oh,
roll it out carefully because my son wants to go to animation school, and there was a program in Paris, and I immediately went there, and I was like, Dad and I could come visit you. We'll be in Paris. And then I saw this fog come over his eyes, just a big window shut, and he went, I don't think I'm doing that anymore.
It's amazing. No, they knew I was joking. I could never be Rodney Dangerfield.
He knew I was not joking. He knew I could be
Well,
Rodney.
Paris, I think you get a pass on.
Do you, though? Your
Not
parents
really.
in Paris? It's the
No.
book nobody wants to read.
No.
I wrote a YA novel about Cho. I renamed it Chandler, but
Oh,
Did
I
you?
might have to read that.
I did. Yeah, it was very interesting. I mean, my first year at Cho was the hardest year of my life by far. The culture of abuse at that school was rampant. And as an adult, not that long ago, the school released a report on a 50-year history of sexual abuse from teachers at this school. And then that night I'm calling all my friends, talking about our, kind of revisiting our experiences from the lens of being adults. And the report didn't even cover hazing and student on student abuse, which was very common. And often teachers were just standing by laughing. It was very much approved of. And so eventually I felt like I wanted to tell a story about that. And it's very much about me trying to reconcile the fact that it was a school that allowed so many horrible things to happen to me and my friends, but also was the school where I met all my best friends still to this day, where I met the English teacher who became my mentor and really set me on the course of my life, where I became the person I am today, where I felt like empowered. So it's a amazing thing to reconcile something that was both really, really hard, but also really, really enriching.
It's interesting because I've been head of several independent schools.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how many schools were facing this abuse that went unchecked and sort of kids will be kids or this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, incredible teachers who change lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Like when somebody who I know who now teaches at Cho called me after reading that book, because I was very open about the fact that it's based on real experiences, and said she felt a responsibility to start an investigation into what happened. And my story was really more about students. And I said to her, like, I don't want that. My aim in writing the book was not to have some kind of punitive justice for people who were teenagers in the 90s and were just following the rules of what the institution was teaching them. If anything, I would rather the school read the book and maybe we can all talk about how we heal and forgive.
Yeah.
Which is so much of the themes of what I write is about forgiveness and how do we heal as one people. I'm so not interested in kind of punitive justice. I know we need that in the world sometimes, but that's not the role I want to play at all.
I feel like having just read Like a Love Story and sort of coming off the high of having been with your characters and lived in that world, that there was something for me. I mean, I was exactly that age, 18 in 1989. So it was just like a homecoming for me. It was amazing to me to step back into 89, 90 because it's so vivid and to feel like this is exactly how it felt. This was the teenage world. This was the world of parents. This was right down to those book clubs and the self-help book culture of the late 80s, which was hilarious in a book that gave me so many feelings. I was also really laughing at the late 80s book clubs.
Good.
But the touch is so gentle for all the pain that is, sort of embedded into a story of, AIDS in the late 80s, which is part of this story. There's so much forgiveness. There is so much understanding of parents who in some ways, I mean, jump in here because you were a parent at that time, but it was, sort of a tone deafness and a transactional relationship of art's dad and sort of the need to solve and to blame. And yet these parents did not feel like tropes. They were real parents.
They were real. But I can also, I was talking about this because your book really brought it up for me. I was teaching So I was in a different place,
Mm-hmm.
and I was teaching a course in modern drama at an independent school, and I had them read The Normal Heart.
Oh,
And then I found out that Larry Kramer was producing The Normal Heart in Philadelphia,
oh, wow.
and I never forgot that. All of the kids loved it,
Mm-hmm.
and they talked about it in class so much. And I thought, you know what? In 2025, I couldn't do that.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's very interesting because when I was in high school, I did a summer program at the Lee Strasberg Institute
Oh,
in New York, which is where I learned that I did not want to be an actor anymore, which is a good lesson to learn when you're a young theater kid before you get too deep. But one of the things we did on that program was they took us to see the original Broadway production of Angels in America. And we got to meet the cast and crew after and ask them questions, and it changed my life. Absolutely. And I'm sure that you did the same for your students. It's so powerful. And it's very interesting. My parents were very conservative back then. They've shifted, thankfully, but they were very conservative, but they never policed what I saw or read. I mean, in fact, I think they were quite progressive in that way, which is really interesting. They were very traditionally Iranian, politically conservative, but they took me to see Madonna when I was 8 when I begged, and when I was 13 and I begged, and they brought me the Madonna sex book to boarding school when I asked for it, which made me very popular. That book actually changed my life because I did go from an outcast to suddenly everybody wanted to be my friend.
that's great.
Purely because
Over Madonna's sex book.
of course, because no other parent would buy it for their kid except for my super cool
That's
Iranian
cool.
conservative parents.
Very, very cool.
So it's very complex, and it means a lot to me that you singled out forgiveness for the adults in there, because it is, I speak at schools a lot, and the primary thing I always incorporate into my talks when I talk to students is empathy for older generations, and also empathy for people who don't necessarily think the way you do. It is the hardest part of my life, I think, has been that I'm always at the intersection of things. Like, I'm too Iranian for the gay community, too gay for the Iranian community, to this, but you're always in between. But what
Yeah.
I think it's also been the biggest gift of my life, because it's taught me that I can't get all my needs met by one community or one person ever, and I have to be a bridge. And so it's been very hard, like being an Iranian gay man coming of age in the West, like in the 80s, 90s, and today. There is a through line of many Western LGBT people kind of pushing me to cut out my family members who aren't supportive or who are conservative, or my community for not being progressive enough. And I always refuse to do that. There's this sense of loyalty that I have.
Yeah.
And it's really, for me, it's really proven to be the right thing, because most of my family members have come along and accepted me. And the Iranian community is finally having these conversations, in large part because of people like me and others who were, empathetic enough to keep showing up and not cutting them out of their lives. So I think forgiveness is something we don't have enough of in the world right now. And I'd love to inspire more of it if I can.
I love that, because I think we've had so much cancel,
Yes.
and I've seen that in schools, and kids are very quick to righteously cancel people, and there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, and I think part of that has to be on the parents. Like, for myself, one of the most beautiful things is watching the relationship my kids have with my parents.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the most beautiful experience of my whole life, to be honest. I really think it is. But my parents, even though they've now come a long way, and I would describe them more as liberal, they're still older Iranians from a certain generation. They have different values. They're comfortable talking about different things. They're uncomfortable talking about a lot. And to watch my kids understand that there's a different set of kind of values and social rules in their home than in ours, and to respect both, and to learn that you could love people regardless of that, is so cool. And sometimes it's really funny too. Like, I remember when my kids were really young. I mean, they must have been so young. And we were visiting my parents in New York City, where they now live. And the room I was working in was right next to the room the kids stay in. And I could hear my mom and our son, Rumi. And Rumi was like, Lily. My mom's name is Lily. And he's like, Lily, do you accept the LGBTQIA community? And my mom, you have to understand, like an 80-year-old Iranian woman does not, she's like, yes, Rumi, yes, just, get dressed. And then he's like, well, I assume you support the gay because your son is gay, but do you support intersex, trans, bi, queer? And he's like listing them all up. And my mom's like, I don't know what that all means to me. I don't know what that means. And I was just in the room on my laptop working, like laughing and also just feeling this warmth of just how beautiful it is that they can have that relationship, even though they don't understand. Like, my kids will never understand the specifics of how my parents came of age and what they went through. And my parents will never fully understand what's happening in schools today or how kids talk to each other. But how cool that they can still connect in that way.
It's so true.
It is true. Do you have any memory of being in Iran?
No, I don't. I left when I was 2.
I ask because I worked with a woman and I had no idea she was Iranian or had been born in Iran. And they were leaving and it was apparently scary and there was a lot of unrest. She has no memory of it, but when she was little, sometimes noise, she would lie down on the floor and scream.
Wow.
And she had this memory of noise and the fear.
Wow.
And they were really getting out under complicated circumstances.
Sure. As did most people.
Yeah.
It's a very, a lot of what I'm interested in is grounded in immigrant experience as well, because it's such a specific thing to have your past be in a place that is not the place you're in. And so a lot of it is inaccessible. And my parents' generation of Iranians, at least them and my aunts, uncles, and their social circle, I think very much believed that hiding the trauma from your kids was the right thing to do.
Right.
So we were never told what happened. And we grew up with like history being a bit of a vacuum for us. So as an adult, I'm now obsessed with history. All I want to do is get all the stories. Our kids went to a little Sunday Persian school for a while out here. And one day I went, toward the beginning, I went with all the parents to have lunch. And we all started talking about our backgrounds. And we realized that every single one of us had a family member who was killed during the revolution. It was just this.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's just everyone. And you just start to realize, and this is the case with most immigrants, which is why I'm so deeply enraged by what's happening at the moment is, in many cases, because of the actions of the US, the UK, and powerful nations around the world, countries become sources of conflict and people die and people are traumatized and they come to find refuge in places like this.
Right.
But they're bringing all of that with them, and then to re-traumatize them by demonizing them as immigrants just feels...
I'm thinking of how when my son was born, he was 1 pound in the NICU and he was born out here. The surrogate was here. And the birth was unexpected at 23 weeks. And my brother was dating an Iranian woman. We were living in a motel for 4 months. And her parents just took us in, brought food to the whole NICU, every night, food. And what I hadn't realized at the time, being so in my own trauma with my 1 pound baby in the NICU, was that they were coming to this situation understanding trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just, at the time, that was not, I hadn't realized
so
that,
beautiful.
that there was a deep connection, that they were like, here we are,
and
here's our home, here's dinner.
Iran is so often defined by its politics.
Exactly.
But what I will say is it is a very sensual culture, by which I mean like the senses, food, beauty, music. One of the things in my novel, Only This Beautiful Moment, it's about 3 generations of men in the same Iranian family. So it's in the 30s, the 70s, and present day. And one of the through lines is Persian poetry. And the reason I did that is because my father, who is the most kind of macho Iranian type of man you would imagine, he's into athletics, he's into all the typically male stuff, can recite countless poems by heart and would do it all the time. And, my father is not someone who often talks about the past, but sometimes stories will come out. And we were just on spring break vacation with the kids and my dad, and he told us about how his love for poetry started. And it was because when he was in the military service in Iran, one of the boys who was in the service with him was obsessed with poetry and would always recite poems. And so my dad fell in love with the poems and then learned them by heart too. And it's just so beautiful to have this culture where even the men, I mean, the idea that like, you know, your stereotypical alpha male in America would be able to recite all these poems by heart and talk about how beautiful the verses are seems kind of laughable, right? But in Iran, that's the norm.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a contradiction here,
Yeah.
but it's both things.
But it's not there. Yeah.
You know, here is this book that you've written that is sort of simultaneously, like, it's become canon. It's also
God.
very banned.
It's very
Like,
banned. Yes.
yes.
Is that why it's canon?
I mean,
It's banned.
It's banned and canon. Like, you're in two spaces with this book in a way. I mean, I feel like that's got to be like an interesting moment for, you know, as an artist, as somebody who's created this thing that I think so many people would say, let's get this book to everybody. And then because we're living in the time that we're living, it's like, oh, but here are entire swaths of the population who are going to ban this book. Like, where are you coming out on that?
Oh, God. First of all, I have to say, it doesn't feel like canon to me.
My
so
son would say it's
yeah.
canon.
Your
In
son
fact,
would say
I
it's
think
canon?
I'm taking that
And
word
I
from
think you
him.
have to take him
Yeah,
at his word.
The 17-year-old
his
says
definition.
that because he's,
That
you
is-
know, the boy who was born in 2007.
That is lovely. Our son's best friend, who I'm very, very close with, read the book, and my discussions with her about it have been some of my favorite talks about my work ever. I love talking to young people about this book because they respond so emotionally, and then it creates an opening to talk about their parents' generation. You say it's canon, but I hope all your listeners understand. I've talked to every banned author about this. Banned books sell a lot less. A lot less.
They do.
Yes, it creates a huge plummet, especially if it's YA or middle grade, because the majority of our sales come through institutional buying, through schools, libraries. It's put a huge dent in school visits.
That's so sad.
My speaking agent said that requests across the board have gone down 50 to 75% for their authors because schools now are just not, they don't want to take the risk. And I understand that. I mean, I talk to librarians often who are scared. I mean, they're getting threats just like I am. They often
Do
have
you
to-
get threats?
I have, yeah. I mean, I've largely exited Twitter/X because that's
Yeah.
where most of the cruelty was. So I don't really engage there anymore. And I've come to a different. In the beginning, when the book was getting banned, I felt like it was my responsibility to defend it,
Yeah.
so that I showed people that I stood by it. And now I've kind of understood that that's a lose-lose proposition for me, and I mostly ignore it. But it makes me very sad because, of course, in the book, there's a character of Uncle Stephen who writes these note cards
I
for the
love
kids.
Uncle Stephen.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
I do too.
And I loved his index cards.
So that's,
what-
yeah.
yeah.
And so the whole idea of the index cards is that he's passing on the index cards are, you know, information about people, concepts, gay culture. But the whole concept of the index cards was built around the idea that back in the 80s and 90s, when I was a kid, queer culture would never have been taught in schools, you know. And so the index cards were written because he wanted a way to pass that down to kids.
yeah.
And then here we had this moment where finally high schools were teaching a little bit about our life and our history, and now it's being banned. And that makes me so sad because the message it sends to those kids is they should feel ashamed about their identity, just like I felt. And I know how corrosive shame is. It's, to me, just terrible. It just fills me with sadness to make kids feel that way. And I've spoken to schools, high schools, older kids in high schools who knew nothing about HIV, not even just the history. I mean, the book deals with activism, ACT UP, the government, Reagan, all this stuff that kids should know. But they didn't even know about it as a virus they need to be protected from because it's still not over. And then you look at the rates. I mean, we have the capacity to end HIV. We have all the tools.
Right.
But the government is still so ashamed to talk about sexuality that we can't.
You know what I found in my school is that the kids were really pushing the narrative. And I love that.
In what does that mean, pushing the narrative?
It means that when, you know, we were happy to talk about queer culture, gay,
Mhm.
you know, whatever, but the kids wanted to own it, and they wanted to teach it, and they wanted to talk about it.
Right.
And then I found that other students were far more moved by listening to their peers.
You are an educator. You're right, a career educator. I feel even now, I tell, we're gay parents, we're open parents, but I tell my kids, school is your place to figure out who you are independent of your family. You, as an educator, are there to serve the kids, not the parents.
Exactly. Significant number of kids have two moms, two
Yes.
dads. We've had trans boys. And yeah, you get called every name in the book when you
Right.
say it doesn't matter. You know, that
Right.
school will not only not fall apart, it will be enriched by having these kids go through
I mean,
something.
I just feel very grateful for you and for every educator, because I had those educators. My English teacher is the first person I came out to. And it
Really?
was 10 years before I came out to my parents. So that shows you how long the journey was. Educators who see kids, that's huge. That's where I first felt seen, was at Cho, where we discussed, I really
Yeah.
understood myself. And there's always, I just feel like I have to underline this because I've been asked this so many times, there's always age appropriate ways to talk about things. You don't
Yeah.
have to get into the discussions that are not age appropriate. As a gay parent, I often think that one thing that national discussions of parents' rights and all this stuff don't include is like, well, what about parents who don't fit that? Like, if you ban all discussions of LGBT identity from an elementary school, how is a kid like our kids going to be able to talk about their families? Like, what happens when it's parents' visit day? Like, what do we do? It's nonsensical.
Right. It should be just embedded, like seeded into the entire flow of your educational experience.
Yeah.
And kids are ready when they're ready. When we had Julie Buxbaum over and we were talking about our spicy book that we had and whether
Yes.
these kinds of books should be in libraries. And I think we came to this sort of point that I really hadn't thought about until Julie said, as a parent, she knew that her daughter sort of loved these romances, but then also that she was sort of skipping over parts until she was ready
Absolutely.
to kind of like go into that sort of more sexy piece of it, love the romance piece of it. And then when kind of looped back when she was ready to handle it, because kids
Yes.
understand that.
Yes, it is amazing. We had the same experience watching things when our kids were younger. They'll ask questions when they're ready for the answer. Otherwise, things flow over them and you watch them and you're like, oh, did they catch that?
Yeah, that's
nuance?
right.
And they don't.
No. Yeah.
Very
And I think this is where the band piece comes in, because the band piece suddenly means, oh, it's where the shame piece comes in. It's where
Yes.
the secret comes. And
It's very scary because banning is the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, of course.
And now there's the pornography bill that's just been
I
introduced.
just heard about that.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, they're calling our books pornography.
Exactly.
So, they say it's a pornography bill. Everyone hears pornography and they forget the fact that the definition of pornography can be much more expansive
Whatever
than
they
think.
want. And that's what
Yes.
worries me about books like your books,
Yeah.
because they're not only beautifully written and the characters are so touching and so moving, and we can barely talk.
I know we
about
loved
it.
this book so much. We were like, we just can't look at each other when we
And
talk about it, because then we'll be back in the book and we'll
Oh,
have
God.
all these
But
feelings.
I have written to friends of mine at schools and saying you have to, because independent schools can do this.
Yes.
For now.
Absolutely.
For now.
Well, maybe after this episode airs, the book will become canon. It's not canon yet.
I just trust my son. We just talked about you let the kids lead, and this is what my child said to me.
My kids have not read it.
Well, my child is in high school.
Your child is not. Well, I think my kids haven't read it not for that reason. I think they are very
It's
curious.
because you wrote it.
It's because I wrote it, and after my son's best friend read it and really loved it and still talks to me about it, I think she told them it might be a little uncomfortable, and I understand that. I mean, if
Sure.
it's so inspired by my teen years, and it's obviously very raw, they know what it's about, and I talk to them about it all the time, but I think maybe they need to be a little older to fully understand what their dad went through in such kind of emotional detail.
What is it to be a dad of teens and also writing young adult and
I don't have a perspective yet on that because my kids just became teenagers very recently. But what I will say is I moved out to Los Angeles on June 1st of 98 to work in this industry only because I loved Hollywood so much. I realized I could be a writer here because I was an assistant and I read so many scripts for my bosses that eventually I felt like, why am I not doing this? But I never wrote anything truly personal until the kids were born. I think there was a seismic shift in how I viewed my own creativity and the responsibility of it. Like before them, I just wanted to be a successful writer and make money and have my name
Yeah.
on movies.
Yeah.
After they were born, I felt this need to tell my personal stories almost as a record so they understood my values and who I stood for. And even though they haven't read the books yet, I know the books will be there for them if
That's
they ever need them. And primarily that's why I write them. I know that other people feel seen by them too, but I felt, especially because, being a gay Iranian, like the first book I wrote was the first book ever to have a gay male Iranian lead. They just didn't exist.
Sure.
And we didn't exist in film or TV either. It was just a void. And I felt like I just had to put the stories down. So I think having kids, and my husband too, I have to give him a lot of credit. Like, when people break your heart open, it allows you to write from a place of vulnerability. And I was raised to hide my vulnerability. That was very culturally ingrained in me. And so I would often hide, even in my writing, I would hide behind humor or irony, or, I would find ways to kind of write from other perspectives that weren't my own to always obscure my own pain. And Like a Love Story was the first book I wrote. I genuinely felt like that was a book that scared me so much because it was the first time I put my own pain on the page.
I want to talk about Exquisite Things.
That's soon.
That's
This-
2025.
Yes, my new book, Exquisite Things,
In
comes out
September.
September 23rd, 2025. It is about a young Iranian boy who is going to boarding school in London in 1895.
I'm in.
The beginning is set against the backdrop of the Oscar Wilde trial for gross indecency.
Oh, that's a good one.
And his father visits from Iran and finds him with another boy. And the boy's dad is a solicitor who represents Oscar Wilde. So he has some of the original pages of Dorian Gray. And in a rage, the dad burns them, and the burning of the pages makes this boy immortal.
I am so reading this.
So it is, but then what happens is this boy falls in love and he makes the other boy immortal. And really what it is, it's these two immortal boys who are traveling the world trying to find a time where their love isn't a crime and where they can live freely. And it focuses primarily on Boston in the 1920s and London in the 70s and 80s, but it goes all the way to today.
Passes right by 2025. in the
No,
United
2025 is in there. It's in there.
Wait.
I
Is it?
love
Yes.
this idea.
Yes,
It's like if
it
you would
ends
lose your
in
Addie
2025.
LaRue with like more Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
Which, yes.
Oh, there you go.
All right, should we do book recs?
Yeah, let's do book rec.
All right. Abdi, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. I brought
Okay.
my book rec.
Okay.
It is The Island of Missing Trees by Alif Shafak. It's so beautiful. It really covers a lot of the themes we've discussed. It begins in London with a young teenage girl who, actually, wait, what you were saying that you just, the girl who remembered her trauma and she screamed?
Yeah.
She just, so this begins when this girl just screams in the classroom and it becomes like this big event in her life. And then she goes back to understand her parents' life in Cyprus in the 1970s when there was a war and I didn't know much about Cyprus, so I love discovering the
Right.
history. But really the most special part of the book is that a lot of it is narrated by a fig tree. And this fig tree began in Cyprus in the 70s, and a little piece of it was taken to London with this family and replanted. And the fig tree narrates the history, the love stories, and the family. And it's really about kind of the importance of knowing your past in order to
Yeah.
move into a better future.
That
I
sounds
loved
so
it.
good.
It's
You loved it. You read it.
I
I
did
need to
read
read
it. So my book rec is How to Survive a Plague. I was mesmerized by this book. It's a story of how activists and scientists tamed AIDS, and by David France. My takeaway is that I think I just had blind faith that, of course, scientists were racing to find a cure. And it became clear reading the book that actually, no, people were perfectly comfortable having men die, particularly men die in New York and San Francisco.
Yeah.
And they were not trying to find the cure. I remember so clearly what it was like. And this was a time, but it wasn't historical. It was really going on in people's lives. It made me really question the government and the commitment to something that felt really nefarious. So
Good hunch.
Yeah, I know.
Wow,
All right,
that's
mine-
wonderful.
I'm recommending. It
was you or me, sweetie.
But everyone's already read it. It's
know.
canon.
It's
No.
canon. This was
It's a canon.
This book spoke to my soul. It's set in the backdrop of late 80s, early 90s during the AIDS crisis. It captures the beauty of first love and chosen family and finding your voice.
Yeah.
And Madonna. I loved this book.
I loved it too. I loved it.
Also the star of the podcast.
So really that's our show, but everybody has to pre-order Abdi's latest book, Exquisite Things, and we will have it in our notes. And if you love to read, you will love to read this incredible author. He has just popped up into being one of my very favorites.
We're So Mom. Follow us, subscribe, comment, and come back next week.